Thank you. Next up we have Mary Kay Henry from the SEIU and Joe Hanson. Give them a nice warm round of applause too. Lots of applause this morning. How are you?
Hey,
Thank you.
How are you?
Have a seat. How are you?
Very good.
Good.
Morning, Ari.
Now, you heard everything we talked about. I want to talk briefly about you guys. Joe went from being a meat cutter to the president of the UFCW and chair of Change to Win. And really, I think it's clear for those of us who follow labor, Mary Kay is not your father's labor boss. She is the first woman president at SEIU. She founded the Gay and Lesbian Lavender Caucus at SEIU. So starting right away with you, how did you get here, and how does your different experiences affect the different ways that you want to run SEIU in this phase?
Well, Ari, I got here because of 300,000 non-union workers who made a decision to stand up. Can't hear?
Is it
Hello,
working?
hello. Can you hear me now? Great. Can you hear me?
Try moving it a little more to the middle, maybe.
How about this?
There we go.
Good job.
I got here because of hundreds of thousands of individual non-union workers who made a decision to stand up and speak up inside their workplaces. And one that I think about all the time is Stanley Lyles, who was a respiratory therapist in a hospital in Southern California, who when I first met him said, "I don't think the union can make any difference in my life." He earned about $17 an hour and had no health benefits and no retirement, and was really angry about how the ventilators in his hospital didn't work. And he couldn't spend time administering his treatments to the patients. So I coaxed him into a union meeting one day and said, "You should hear what other people in the hospital are saying. You don't have to make a commitment, but it would be great for you to see that everybody is frustrated and wants to change things." So I was so excited the day he walked through the door, and he heard a housekeeper talking about the faulty equipment that was creating more infections in patient rooms. And he stepped up and said, "Well, I'm having problems too." He didn't know the housekeepers were, and that's how the union got formed in that hospital. He raised his wages 18%. He won fully paid family health care. They have a say in the treatment of patients. And every other non-union worker in hospitals across Southern California had their wages raised as a result of his action and hundreds of other workers. And that's how I got to be president of SEIU.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
I want to take the same point to Joe, which is when we look at private sector unions today, as you know, by the end of this president's term, we're looking at 1 out of 20 workers being in a union. And that's down from what used to be 1 out of 3. So it's getting lonely out there. You've been out there as a worker, and you're there now as a labor leader. Tell us about what does that mean for labor writ large?
Well, I guess the best way for me to start would be, I cut meat for 11 years in Wisconsin, and I had a good union job. I was able to raise my family, 4 kids, and we had opportunity and something to look forward. But it isn't just the unions are declining, and over this period of time, it's this attack on the middle class. And I learned very early in my life that the only way you're going to keep a middle class is if you empower workers. Middle class was created by the unions, not by themselves, you know, with the help of religious leaders, community activists. And we have the task right now. You just heard from the public employee unions. You know, we're helping them in a real defensive fight. The attack was on the public employee unions, thinking they could divide us. Well, they can't. We're all in this together. Workers are workers. And, but we're going to pivot. The Change to Win unions, SEIU, food and commercial workers, Teamsters, the farm workers, along with communication workers and UAW, we're going to keep up the defensive fight, but we need to go on the offensive. We have to create a movement, not just with the labor movement. Labor movement didn't create the middle class by itself. It's got to be created with our allies. We got to use everybody in this room, because it's in your best interest and the country's best interest that we recreate that. But you do that by building a strong union so you empower workers.
Mm-hmm. I want to I want to turn, one of the things I love about this conference is you get out and you meet with people in the breakout sessions and small groups, and then you can take it to the larger sessions. And at one of the small labor discussions, I was talking to someone from UFW about what they're trying to do in California. And I just want to spotlight that briefly. You know, Jerry Brown is governor there again. And it's got to say something about this rightward shift, because he's done a lot of good things in his life. But the rightward shift of our politics, he was Governor Moonbeam, for people who remember. At the convention, he was the leftward flank, the Democratic wing of the party, saying, you know, let Jerry speak. And what I was really learning about just this week, meeting with people, is that he is actually balking at signing what looks like a very good farm workers bill out there that would help farm workers have private ballots so they don't have pressure when they're deciding whether to unionize. And it's one that Schwarzenegger had vetoed but has passed again. And now you have the thing that we always seem to have, which is, oh, we elected the Democrat, what's going on? But there's been a tremendous engagement across not only labor, but movement progressives as well. Move On, I think to its credit, engaged its California list on that. Before I turn it to you, just a show of hands, how many people have lived in California or live there now, by a show of hands? Okay, so you have a little caucus meeting right here going. So, so if we can get a little local on that, turning from Madison to Sacramento, what's going on out there, and what can be done to push Governor Moonbeam?
Well, I'm going to go see Governor Brown. I remember when he was Moonbeam, but he's supposedly a progressive governor and should be supporting this issue, and I'm going to see him Wednesday. And we're going to do everything we can. We need all of you to help. There actually is a website, ufw.org/SB104 petition. And the more pressure we can put on, the more emails that we can get to him. I think if we build the pressure, I think he'll see the light and do the right thing. God knows that if anybody needs a union and needs representation, it's these poor people that work in the fields out in California and other states. Mm-hmm.
And what our unions have been doing together is loaning organizers to the UFW and helping do the outreach. There's this online petition that's been delivered to the governor. The bill hit his desk a day ago. Artie Rodriguez started a fast with Howard Berman. Today, I'm going to join the fast tomorrow. We are trying to make sure that there is a spotlight on Brown in the way that you just said, Ari, to try and create the alternative vision for America, where working people can have a right to a voice on the job, improve their lives, and then participate in the democracy and deal with all the justice issues that we really care about. The UFW has been a huge advocate of immigrant justice in this country. And we have to make sure that 12 million working people that live in the shadows in this country are brought into the light and can participate in our democracy.
Absolutely. It's not just the farm workers. That's what we're doing this week. We're going to continue that until we have victory there. But all of our unions are working together. I see on the screen there's the Speak Out. We're going to work with the Progressive Congressional Caucus. We're going to hit a number of, I think, about 17 cities. And people have to realize what's happening to our country, what's happening to workers, what's happening to our kids. And we're going to publicize that. We're going to integrate our campaign. So if it's an SEIU campaign, the food and commercial workers are there. We'll be there with the Teamsters. We'll be there with the auto workers. But it's not just about getting bargaining rights. It's about saving the middle class and rebuilding it.
Yeah, Mary Kay, what else are you doing with sort of Netroots, progressives, and other folks generally across the country? I mean, California is the one example that we talked about. Madison, we've talked about as a local labor push that has gotten national attention. What is this sort of larger national strategy, both politically and for unionization?
Well, we think we need to unite all of our fights together. And Netroots Nation, in my mind, is the best expression of how we think about fighting back together. Labor, LGBT, environmental, immigrant rights, workers' rights. When I think about my history in the union is the vehicle that allows us to stand up for LGBT equality and demand it in our contracts, and then have a same-sex marriage fight in the state of California with our allies. And so we have to unite our fights, and we believe in the labor movement that we have to reach out to non-union workers on a scale that is close to what happened in the labor movement at the time of the Great Depression. Because as we've heard from Franken, Bob Kuttner, and others just this morning, the disparity of wealth in this country is now at the same level that it was in the 30s. And that is unacceptable in a country that generates as much income, and we don't need it concentrated at the top. We all need to share in the prosperity that we're generating, and we need to insist on making sure that every other right, voting rights, LGBT equality, environmental justice, immigrant justice, are all part of this same fight. Because we have to get this country going again.
One of our fights, and I refer to this company as the poster child for our race to the bottom, and that's Walmart. We have a couple of Walmart workers here today, one from Los Angeles and one from Miami. It's a big campaign, but if you want to look at anything that has driven wages and benefits to the bottom, look at Walmart. And it's not just in retail, it's in manufacturing, it's all across the country. And we have to reverse that trend. So that's a campaign that it's not just the United Food and Commercial Workers, and it's not just the unions, it's all of us. And I want to thank those of you in this room that are helping us already, but we need everybody in this fight.
Now, we did want to do one more special thing. We'll see if this works. But instead of the musical guest, it's my last terrible late night joke. We have one more person, though, which I think is a pretty cool thing, rather than just us talkers and liberal agitators and labor leaders. We have someone that, why don't you tell us about this person that's going to come out?
Carla Dye is a nursing home worker here from St. Paul, Minnesota, who tried to form a union at her nursing home last July and was fired for trying to stand up on behalf of the residents that she cared so deeply about. Thanks for coming, Carla.
Hello. My name is Carla. I have been a certified registered nursing assistant for 24 years. I've worked at, lately, a residential facility for seniors with memory care issues. I also was working in an assisted living facility. Issues arose with employees we had concerns about health care, the quality of care to our seniors. We also had concerns in regards to, I'm sorry, I get emotional with this, but we also had concerns with management not hearing our voices. And we are the voice for the voiceless, being our seniors that we provide service and care to. Management decided to not recognize our faces, our bodies, and the hands of their employees who provided this care. Management decided to become deaf to the sound of our voices to speak for our seniors and getting quality care for them. So this brought myself, along with 9 other coworkers, to decide to organize and form a union. Thank you. This was a long, hard job. It took 2 months for us to organize and get together with all kinds of employees to have them understand the needs and the demands of not just us as workers, but our residents. Because when it all comes down to it, without them, we have no jobs. So we organized, and I was on the committee along with 9 other coworkers, and what we thought was going to be us having or gaining a voice actually became a fight with management. And management would slander and go against the organizers. They would turn us against coworkers against other coworkers who were supposed to be a team. They actually became a wall to divide us. And it affected us in providing quality care to our residents. I stood to fight for the care of our residents, and in that fight, I lost my job just because I wanted to have a voice. I think that the only way for us to have a voice as healthcare workers is to have a union. Without a union, we are not heard and we are not seen. So I ask that employees be able to organize and form their union without harassment and intimidation from management. Thank you.